motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. This is the Bev Smith Show on the Empowerment Radio Network.
Hello.
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear me, Dr. Johnson?
I can hear you just fine.
I'm so delighted to have you with me. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. I called you late this afternoon because the Democratic debates will be held tomorrow, and you've announced that you are going to be running for the presidency, which is a bold move. We have to talk about that. And there's so much going on. And the last time we spoke, we talked about what was happening in Baltimore, what was happening in South Carolina, and what was happening with the issue of the Confederate flag. So we haven't talked in a while. And I want to...
We actually talked after that. We talked when I was at the anniversary in Ferguson.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember. And along the way, and the marching along the way, we absolutely did. You're right. I want people to... Most people know you as the activist. Most people know you as one of the originators of the concept of Black Lives Matters. Most people know you as a person that is on the scene and on the crowd. I remember the story you told me about going to the community in Ferguson and going there. What was it, the night before or the day before, and how the people greeted you. But none of the people that were the speakers came to that community. The people were ready for them, but they didn't come. And how you sat there and talked to the people. You have always been on the scene. Why do you want to change that?
In actuality, I don't want to change it. I want to elevate it. I want to take it to a level where those folks are included in the national discussion, where they're not knocking on the door, asking like Oliver with his bowl of gruel. Sometimes the only way to cure the cancer is from the inside out.
All right. Having said all of that, you know the game. You know the game. First of all, look at your name. John Fitzgerald Johnson. Very famous name, John Fitzgerald. Very famous name. You know how politics runs. This is a nasty business. Be interesting to see if Mr. Obama writes his memoirs and tells it like Jimmy Carter did. Be interesting to find out. Because it's a dirty game. It's a nasty game. Nasty, cruel, changing, and in some cases, very powerful, and in most cases, you can get rich. Having said all of that, you cannot accomplish what you want to accomplish, and certainly Mr. Obama shows that, without the support of A, your party, and B, the influence upon Capitol Hill. We have seen how Mr. Obama, it appears to me, his own party, has abandoned him, and he is a Democrat. What's your relationship with the Democrats? And you're running on the Democratic platform or on the Democratic ticket. Have they welcomed you, the party that is?
In actuality, and before I go any further, let me say it's a pleasure to speak to you again. It's always a pleasure to come on your show. It is a breath of fresh air, and I've been on several. In actuality, when I declared my candidacy for the presidency back in August, I did not declare Democrat. I actually declared independent because I refused to play the red-blue game. I refused to fall into the status quo. But as you said, as I begin to get more visibility into the processes and some of the hoops you have to jump through, some of the relationships you have to build to actually have the electorate give you the number that you need in order to acquire the presidency, I had to make a choice. And that choice, of course, was the lesser of two evils, and that was the Democratic Party. Now, since the last time you and I talked, I have been on a magical trip to the Wizard of Oz in the land of Oz because I've had to visit everybody from the Wicked Witch all the way to the wizard himself. I have had to meet with some of the most powerful people in the government, and I've met with some of the most powerful people in some of the caucuses and some of the most influential states. Not to say, can I get your support, but to build a relationship and win their support. It was only after I amassed, as what you just said, enough backup that I realized that this was not just a whimsical thought of mine, but something that the Constitution said that I was qualified to do, and that I had enough backing not only in the political channel, but just as you said, I've been on the ground. I've been talking to the American people, not just the blacks, but the whites, the Hispanics, the Native Americans, who've also been affected by a lot of these issues that we've been grappling with for the last 2.5 years that the current crop of candidates forget exist or choose to act like is not as important as talking about other things like being gossip. So therefore, I'm very aware, and I've put in the wrench time, and I've built those relationships, and I'm continuing to build those relationships. Now, to answer your direct question about my relationship with the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party has acknowledged me. The Democratic Party only recently began to list me as a viable candidate for the Democratic nomination, but there's a long way to go. We've still got a little ways to go to the election. I'm on tap to talk to a few other black caucuses in some of these other black states because I do need their support. However, one of the things that I have not shut the door on is what I said before the last time you and I talked. I had my epiphany. I had my epiphany in South Carolina on the Arthur Ravenel Bridge with 20,000 people who came out in a show of unity and a show of Martin Luther King's dream being actually manifested. And what I listened to you talk about earlier was the message that the minister gave at the Million Man March when he said that we're all going to have to come together, all colors, because the very thing that makes this country great is its diversity, and the very thing that they're using to tear us apart is its diversity. And unless someone comes along who's willing to attack that from the outside in and from the inside out, as delicate a balance as it may be, then we're headed towards some of the darkest years this country has ever seen. And I can't sit back and watch that happen.
Let's talk about, you gave us a little political lesson, and I'm delighted to see you're aware of the format. I know that you would be, but it's interesting sometimes when I listen to the African American running on the Republican side, it does not sound as if Dr. Carson is aware of how the game is played or the system that has already been established for eons, and that is the system of how you get elected. You mentioned the Electoral College, you mentioned the caucuses, and you mentioned that you will be going to the African American caucus. Tell the audience why these things are so important for you to do. And can you get the Democrats to endorse you enough so that you're at the second debate?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked me that, Bev. First of all, let me shatter a myth that the media, the corporate media, continues to force down the rest of the Americans' throats, and that is the black community is not a monolithic group. We're not one solid group that moves and has our being together. We are as multifaceted, multi-opinionated, and multicultured as the rainbow of colors that we are, that they like to call brown people. Therefore, these caucuses represent those different areas. They've all come together to achieve common causes in spite of their differences. If I don't win their support, then I can't go after the true golden apple that all of those other candidates, including Dr. Carson, appears to want so badly, and that is the black vote. 47 million people, whether you vote or not, is a very powerful number. And no matter how it's divided up, no matter who represents it, you get all of that vote, then you have a ticket in the game. They asked Donald Trump when he went to the first debate, if we don't nominate you, can you promise us that you won't turn rogue and damage the vote? And he said, no, I'm not going to make that promise, because he knows that whatever constituency rolls with him, whether they roll to the White House or roll off a bridge, he wants them to roll with him to the end. And I realized that in order to represent the African-American vote, in order to represent the Hispanic vote, in order to represent all those other demographics, one of the most important ones that they just can't seem to figure out how to get a hold of is the African American vote, not just Democratic, not Republican, the African American vote. That in itself is monolithic. And as many of those caucuses and as many of those folks who sit behind closed doors and vote in the Electoral College and understand that you carry the power and the influence of the black vote, they will support you.
All right, let's take a look at the interest of the black vote. And because you are asking for the American public to consider you as a viable candidate for the office of the presidency of the United States, we have to talk about we the people and us the people, okay? Let's talk about us the people first. We the people, Africans in America. There are a lot of people who may not fully understand the office of the presidency that are upset with this president. They're upset with him because they say, those that are upset with him, that they expected more from him and they expected for him to speak out on certain issues. I certainly think when he spoke out about what happened in Ferguson and when he spoke out about what happened in Baltimore and the other day when he said it's enough now, he was echoing more than anything, not just the opinion of all Americans, but the opinions of Africans and Americans. Enough. We can't even concentrate. We're being attacked at every level. Because he has stepped out and said even those things, he has incurred the wrath of people.
Do you want to learn how to earn commissions of up to 20% by laundering millions of foreign dollars?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's email security solutions keep email phishing attacks like this from entering your business network and any valuable data from leaking out. Reclaim your network like 150,000 other businesses have. To learn more about stopping email-borne threats, visit barracuda.com/email.
Join News and Talk 1380 WAOK Saturday, November 14th as Judge Penny Brown Reynolds presents the 3rd Annual Sister Talk Women's Empowerment Conference at the Georgia International Convention Center.
Hi, this is Judge Penny Brown Reynolds. If you've never been to my Sister Talk conference before, you don't know what you've been missing.
Attendees will benefit from sessions addressing issues of self-empowerment, health, and professional and personal development.
We're having a prayer breakfast and a luncheon honoring legendary gospel great Pastor Shirley Caesar, Attorney Janice Mathis, and Elizabeth Omalami.
This year's conference is followed by a concert with Maze featuring Frankie Beverly.
Hey there, my brothers and sisters. This is Frankie B. of Maze for Judge Penny's Foundation at the Georgia International Convention Center.
Get tickets at ticketalternative.com or listen to win on WAOK. Judge Penny Brown Reynolds' 3rd Annual Sister Talk Women's Empowerment Conference. Get all the details at WAOK.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. Call 800-790-4961. That's 800-790-4961. Again, 800-790-4961.
Do you owe the IRS? Do you have unfiled tax returns? Have you received a wage garnishment or bank levy? If you or your business owe $10,000 or more to the state or IRS, and you are one of the first 100 callers, we will prepare your tax returns for free. Call the Tax Firm of America, 1-800-726-1430. This offer is limited to the first 100 callers. 1-800-726-1430. 1-800-726-1430.
Ad Council.
News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
Get empowered. Inspiring, motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. Get empowered. Get empowered.
talking with John Fitzgerald Johnson, and I want to read to you. Usually I do my own introductions, but I want to read to you what certainly is his theme and his promotional material. John Fitzgerald Johnson is the product of the United States. He was a veteran. He defended this country. As an ordained minister, he preaches the Word of God. As an IT architect, he supports Fortune 500 corporations nationwide. As a recording artist, he's recognized worldwide as the real Grandmaster J, with a music business career that spans over 30 years. As an activist, he's been one of the loudest voices for unity and change in addressing the stormy season of racial inequality. And that's where we left off. His theme I like. The people, and not from the political machines that America has grown tired of. He knows we are one nation, and only we can fix it. That's his theme. Now let's talk about how you fix this issue of racism and what you can accomplish. You were talking about the president, and you were saying, and I wanted to hit on that point for a moment, that I feel, Dr. Johnson, that what we need to do is exercise our political power with education, because I am not sure we thoroughly understand how it functions. Because if we did, we would be at the zoning meetings. If we did, we'd be at the city council, the county meetings, the state meetings. We'd be there. And if it did, we'd vote. Whether we voted in the primary or whether we voted in the main election, we would be there to vote and show up at the polls and be there to let our voice be heard. Because we really do. The blood of our ancestors, in my opinion, Dr. Johnson, cries out. You were talking about that and what you would do and how you would handle it before the break. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bev. Just picking up right where I left off, as I said before, and as we begin to see the president himself finish his second term, where he's no longer bound by trying to keep an even keel, so to speak, not trying to show any bias. One of the things that's been pointed at me or repeatedly asked of me by a lot of other journalists is, isn't it true that you've been out here campaigning for the black folks, that you've been out here a black activist against the injustices, and that you're only seeking justice for the black folks? And that is the very mentality that must be destroyed or cannot manifest itself when you are sitting in the highest office of this land and you're expected to make fair and unbiased decision-making or support fair and unbiased policies for all Americans. However, to answer your earlier question, we cannot walk through this blindly as if it's just, everything is hunky-dory and these policies are helping everybody. Because I'm one of you. Because I'm not part of the machine, as Bev just illustrated, because I am one of the regular folk who has decided to avail themselves to the political process. Not only do I have an understanding of what we need to work on, but I'm also been sometimes a victim, and sometimes I've been a benefactor of some of those same systems that we rail against and some of the same practice that we abhor. So my approach would be twofold. The very first one is just what you said. There has to be an internal reawakening through systems, programs, and so forth that allow us time to do just what we need to fix ourselves. I wish I had more time, but I would go into one of the ideas that we had about the amnesty year. But that's a show for another time. Mr. Farrakhan said it correctly when he said that it's our own wealth that we could utilize to fix ourselves. But as long as our communities are being socialized and conditioned into a consumer frame of mind where we never stop to think that we could build our own towns, form our own banking systems, make our own police force, and so forth, to take care of ourselves and be a role model to ourselves like every other demographic is doing in this country. Until we undertake that effort and until we get permission and until we have the authority and the policies and the leeway to make it happen from the U.S. government, then it's just wishful thinking. That is one approach. The other approach is external. We as a community, and I'm speaking directly to the African community now, have to put on a unified face for those who don't understand us. We have to put on some form of a unified face. I think you said earlier that the concept of leadership has been destroyed, or that people don't adhere to that anymore. Well, guess what? You're not going to get anywhere unless you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, someone has to show you the way. The Bible says, how will they know unless they are taught? And how will they be taught unless they have a preacher? And how will they have a preacher unless he be sent? Even then, God is giving you a spiritual leader. And we have to get over ourselves long enough to realize, listen, we cannot character assassinate everyone who steps up and says, well, I'm willing to lead. Because if you're not willing to lead, you're part of the problem. If you're willing to support, you're part of the solution. If you're willing to lead, then you're one of the people like myself. Policies, programs, internal awakening, restructuring, financial latitude, all of those things have to happen. Under my administration, they would at least be given the opportunity to happen. Whereas in the last 8 years, as much as I respect Barack Obama, one of his staunchest criticisms is, for real, black man, you're not going to do anything. Well, I think it's because he's trying to walk that fine line. And toward the end, no, he's not been a powerless, lame duck second-term president. I think he will show his true colors on the way out the door. I would probably show mine in my first term.
When we talk about what can be done, and when we talk about the responsibility of our people to declare our destiny, it should not be foreign to us. There was a time in America when African Americans had towns of our own. How can we not remember the story of Tulsa, Oklahoma? We carved out, in that racist town, we carved out a community that rivaled Wall Street. As a matter of fact, that's why white folks went crazy, because black people were dealing at a level. Don't teach them how to read and write and cipher. Can you feel me, Reverend? Don't teach them how to do that, because if you teach them how to read and write, they'll understand the game. Well, they were already understanding the game. You took your slaves with you. What do you think? They didn't understand that? You say they didn't understand our language. Well, you didn't understand theirs either. You weren't bilingual. You went to their country and expected everyone to speak your tongue. You didn't understand their tongue. Come on now, let's use some common sense. So what you have to explain to me is how you, as a leader and an activist, would organize the people so that they would get out and understand the power of their vote, so that they would understand the power of their dollar and what it can and cannot do. Everyone understands the power of the dollar in the black community. Products have been just aimed at us. The demographic.
Let me share this with you, Bev. You know, one of our biggest problems is, and I heard this the other day in the media, is that activists of today are still stuck in 1965. Let me say it a different way. It is fine for us to raise awareness. It is fine for us to have meetings and gatherings and marchings, and it is fine for folks to post material, and we're all in agreement that something needs to be done. We've been singing that same tune for 50 years. However, the part that we keep missing collectively as a people is that at some point we have to come to the game table with a game plan, not just a plan, but we have to assign certain factions and portions of our community to own those action items and report back on the progress of such. Otherwise, we're just running our mouths. And I will share this with you. A vast portion of America has finally come to the conclusion that as far as the black community is concerned, they just want to talk. Yes, they look good marching. Yes, they're great at raising awareness, but they ain't going to do nothing. We've got to get to the do something phase. And that's not just with lip service. That's with money. That is just what you said before. All of these rich athletes, entertainers, actors, actresses, and a lot of rich business people in the African American community have got to band together and say, I'm going to take $1, $2, $3, $4, $6, $12, $50 million of my money and do just what you said. You see, the education system has been revamped to the point where, of course, you don't know about what happened in Black Wall Street because they don't talk about it.
Hold that point. But there are calendars. There's information. The question has to be, what do we want after this?
motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. This is the Bev Smith Show on the
The results are in. For the treatment of nasal allergy symptoms, nothing is more effective than Nasacort. Nasacort Allergy 24-Hour is prescription-strength medicine that's scent and alcohol-free with no harsh taste. It's non-addictive and provides 24-hour relief of the worst nasal allergy symptoms, including congestion, with no prescription needed. And in a recent clinical study with Nasacort going nose-to-nose with Flonase, more people prefer Nasacort. For more information, visit nasacort.com. Nasacort. Use as directed.
The smarter way to manage business expenses, presented by Concur.
After my conference, I checked out of the hotel and the bill was automatically added to my expense report. Then I hopped into a taxi. I snapped a photo of the receipt using Concur, and bam, there it was on my expense report. Then I used my corporate card to buy the client's lunch. Another charge added to my expense report.
Expense reports that write themselves. Just one of the many ways Concur helps manage your company's spend so you can focus on the big picture. Take a free test drive today at tryconcur.com.
O'Reilly. The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 48 Sacramento O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey, are those Cape Cod chips you're eating?
Yeah.
You know where they make those things?
Cape Cod, I assume.
You're darn right they make them in Cape Cod, right on Breeds Hill Road in Hyannis, down the street from the mall. Do you know what else they make in Cape Cod? Belts. Belts with little whales on them.
That's cool.
No, it's not cool. The whale belts are an embarrassment. The chips are delicious. They're a local treasure. We're deeply proud of them. Now, can I have a chip, please?
Sure.
Cape Cod chips. Back home, we're a pretty big deal.
Do you know?
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a politician. I believe in the people, and their cars, and Progressive, and the fact that you, yes, you can plug in Snapshot to save even more money for being a good driver. I also believe in Sasquatch, but more as a joke, but also kind of seriously.
Safe drivers save with Snapshot from Progressive.
I approve of this message, and Sasquatch, if you are real, you can totally be my running mate.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Snapshot not available in all states.
AT&T knows that staying on top of your modern life is about staying connected. Whether you're at home, at work, or at play, you always need the ability to go full speed ahead. And that means you need a data plan that has your back. One that works day and night and updates constantly. Right now with AT&T, you can get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at device speed for $40 a month on GoPhone. After a $5 account credit each month when you sign up for auto refill and make your first payment of $45. All on the network with the nation's strongest 4G LTE signal. No credit check, no annual contract, no joke. When you're unlimited, there's nothing stopping you. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Unused 1.5 gigabytes data carries over for one 30-day period if your plan renews on time. Expires after first 30-day period or with plan change. Data usage exceeding the high-speed allowance will result in reduced data speeds of up to 128 kilobytes per second for the rest of your 30-day term. Compatible device required. Get $5 credit after first order refill payment. Credit applied within 30 days. Account must be active. Usage and other restrictions apply. Signal strength claim based only on average 4G LTE signal strength for national carriers. See store for details.
6235.
Inspiring, motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. Get empowered.
He's a preacher, an activist, a veteran who fought both in the war and participated in domestic activities. He's an activist. He's an IT architect, a recording artist known, and Brooke said, "You mean it's the real Grandmaster Jay?" Yes, it is. With a music career that spans over 30 years, and he wants to be president. So we thought, because we did not see his news conference anywhere, that we would listen to him, because we believe we should listen to everyone. And certainly it's interesting because we have not seen any African American declaring the presidency from a Democratic point of view. We think it's interesting. And that's why we thought you ought to hear what he has to say. His name is John Fitzgerald Johnson. You may know him from our show as JJ. He has his PhD, and he's a reverend. You can call him. He wants you to call him Mr. President. Let's look at some of the hardcore issues, but you were finishing up a point when we went to the break. Finish the point, and then I'll do, the shotgun. I'll throw out a topic that you would have to deal with and ask your opinion.
Sure. But before I do that, I want to, you said something very important, and I don't think we should drive right past that. It's very interesting that you have not seen my name in the corporate media. You have not heard me mentioned in the media. They would have you think there's only one African American running for the presidency at all, Ben Carson. And that is intentional. I will say that to folks everywhere. And you should really be aware that they're trying to shape what you think and who you vote for. That's all I'm going to say about that. I declared in August of this year, and here we are in October, and people still think Ben Carson is the only black person running for president, which is so not true. But to wrap up the other statement that I'm starting before the break, I was more so focusing on the fact that we ourselves, internally as a community, have to move beyond the awareness raising and the joy, feel-good sessions that we're having. We have got to start producing some fruit ourselves, utilizing our own resources. People say, well, how do you do that? Believe it or not, it actually starts at every level, from the individual on the streets all the way up to those municipal governments within some of those very cities that people like to call black cities, which we know are not. And I'm not just focusing on the black folks, but I'm speaking because that is a tantamount issue. When you have a rampant poverty, when you have high unemployment, when you have a broken education system, when you have the non-existent belief system of any type in these communities, we know what the results are. High crime, high incarceration rates, and a dying community. No business is being invested. Therefore, all of you folks that are out here that are making millions and millions of dollars and think that you've made it, well, you may have think that you've made it, but as I heard earlier, you're not integrated. You're actually separated. And what you've done is you bought into a game that you have to shift your mindset. We have to shift the mindset. How do we do that? Through re-education. We have to shift the mindset. How? Through community awareness raising. Not just coming together for a rally, but sitting down and having collective meetings nationwide and strategizing about what we're going to do with what we have. Now, remember, the government has always been the stumbling block to stop you from moving ahead. How do they do it? They pass laws, they rezone, they do dictionary, or they'll come back and change tax laws. Well, the only place where those can be prevented from happening to you is at the executive level. There's such a thing as the executive authority that can create things without the bickering within Congress. A lot of people, as you said before, are ignorant to some of these processes because of the simple fact that it wasn't taught to them or they don't see the value of it. But when you begin to look at the full picture and see how it affects your overall lifestyle and your lifestyle living, then you would give it another second thought.
And that's the point that I think we ought to be bringing home with young people. Because you see, everything from the time you get up, the very breath that you breathe. I mean, we were taught, and certainly there were times when I absolutely believed it, and man became a living being. The breath of life was given to man by God. This is what I believe. This is my belief. Everyone doesn't have to believe it. And so the air that I breathe is a continuation of the breath that God gives me. Because I swear to you, when I go to sleep, I have no clue what is happening. And I wake up, I don't know how that happened. Had to be someone bigger than me, somebody bigger than me. And so along those same lines, you wonder how people can ignore breathing. And breathing is getting more and more difficult because of what man has done to the environment. There is an issue of environment up for presidential discussion. And this president has been in the middle of the arena when it comes to the environment, fighting both sides, the industries, the polluters, and the environmental groups that think he's not doing enough. So, I mean, it is a tug of war. Vice President Al Gore came out with a film talking about what we have done to the environment. How do you handle that issue?
It's very interesting. That's a great question. You know, states have long pursued a lot of divergent courses when it comes to addressing climate change through carbon emissions. And there's this constant struggle with the Environmental Protection Agency. I think last June they unveiled a proposal that called on states to reduce carbon emissions on an average of 30% below 2005 levels by the year 2030. You know, all of these different efforts that we see going on are all being met by contention because of something that you mentioned earlier. Most of the time you've got lobbyists for big business and big oil and big coal and a lot of these other polluting agents that have got the money to influence those inside of the Congress, which is where our real problem lies. It's really not so much the corporations and what they're doing. They're only doing what they're allowed to do by law. Again, we would have to change some laws. Do we need to enact some policies? Do we need to take a second look at some of the authority that the EPA, which has pretty much just become a figurehead, Bev, what they can and can't do? A number of states have joined together in a lawsuit seeking to block the EPA's rules, which aren't scheduled to be finalized until next June. And then others simply take a just say no approach to the rules. They refuse to comply with anything, and they just want to wait Obama out until he's gone so they can do what they want to do. As president, there would have to be a collaborative, collective discussion that would involve a lot of elements that would be shut out of the discussion. You're going to have to bring the EPA to the table. You're going to have to bring big business to the table. You're going to have to bring the scientists and climatologists to the table. And then you're going to have to bring data to the table. Notice every time you ask me a question, it keeps circling back to the one thing this country has stopped doing. We don't go to the table and sit down and talk anymore. What we do is we just talk. And everybody's talking, and no one's listening. And we become more and more separate on these issues. Our climate deteriorates. Our health deteriorates. Our food deteriorates. Our medical deteriorates. And before you know it, we're a medicated, sickly country. And we're not the shining example that we used to be to the world.
Well, part of that is because of the game of politics. You've got politicians on Capitol Hill that receive a lot of money from big farm industries who pollute, from poultry companies who pollute. We could cite them in the Maryland area. We can talk about what is happening to the Chesapeake Bay area. We can talk about people who work in poultry plants that have maximums and minimums that they have to get. They can't even take a lunch hour because they have to complete that day. It sounds like what used to happen in slavery, that you had to pick a barrel or a bag of cotton for the day. And if you were a fast gal, you could pick two. And they give you money for that, but then they took the money back, of course. So you have the problem. And speaking about the worker, part of the reason why there's so much resistance to the environment being an issue. By the way, the EPA was dismantled by the Republican Party. The EPA was dismantled by the Republican Party. The Food and Drug Administration's power was taken away by the Republican Party. Look at the way they voted. All you have to do is test me. Go look at the way they voted and when their power was taken away. The Federal Trade Commission, who says whether this product should be advertised right or whether this should be done, their power was taken away from them. And only until we have a critical situation do they get involved. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission defunded. Consumer agencies across the country should be out there now in the streets talking about the schemes that are out there. You have a lot that you would inherit. And we haven't even touched on Social Security and gay rights. These are issues. These are serious issues.
You know, I want to share this with you, and we can get into this later. But believe it or not, Joe Biden said about 4 days ago that he believed that all the presidential candidates are homophobic because none of them had a policy that would speak to LGBT rights in this country, which was interesting because not only do I have a policy that's already published.
Hold that point. We get the music is playing, which means we'll take a break. I want to hear your policy after this.
Gaining access to the airwaves for such a time as this. Transform your mind. Change your thinking. This is the Bev Smith Show. Stay informed and stay in the know. Learn and interact with compelling conversation. Grow your mind and transform your thinking. This is the Bev Smith Show on the...
There's no place like Home Clean Home when you shop at Dollar General. Come in and find your favorite spring cleaning brands, including Sparkle paper towels and Angel Soft bath tissue, Sun all-in-whisk detergents, Snuggle fabric softener, Clorox liquid bleach, Pine Sol multi-surface cleaners, and participating Glad products. Plus, when you visit DollarGeneral.com, you'll find great digital coupons. Spring cleaning's a breeze when you make your home spring fresh for less at Dollar General. Dollar General. Save time, save money every day.
Do you want to learn how to steal customer credit card information from major retailers so you can buy anything you want?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's award-winning firewalls prevent hackers from taking your valuable data to the bank. Reclaim your network like 150,000 other businesses have. To learn more about protecting customer data and your reputation, visit barracuda.com/firewalls.
News and Talk 1380 WAOK presents Hank Stewart's annual Hot Chocolate Affair, Saturday, November 7th.
Hello, this is Hank Stewart. Please join me for my annual Hot Chocolate Affair at the Porter Sanford Performing Arts Theater. All the chocolate you can eat, featuring Grammy Award-winning jazz guitarist Norman Brown. Hosted by my boy, G. Garvin.
Parking is free. Get tickets now at hankstewart.net and listen to Win Yours on WAOK. Hank Stewart's annual Hot Chocolate Affair, Saturday, November 7th. Get all the details at WAOK.com.
The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 48 Sacramento O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
K. Celebrating the legacy of Atlanta, the home of Ambassador Andrew Young.
We have got to find a way to solve the problems of this world without violence, and we can start right here.
WAOK Atlanta, WVEE HD3, the voice of the community, is News and Talk 1380, WAOK.
Motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. Get empowered.
Welcome to the third hour of the Bev Smith Show. We're talking with a man who in August announced that he wants to be president of the United States. You know him as an activist. We know him as JJ. He's Dr. John Fitzgerald Johnson, and you can add Reverend Doctor to that. He is a former rapper, famous, the real Grandmaster J. For about 30 years, he was in that business. He doesn't even look that old. He's a minister, and he has quite a pedigree, as we say. in terms of his activities, what he's involved in, and what he hopes to accomplish. Tonight he's here because he wants to be president, and if you'd like to know more about his campaign, you can go to his website, which is onlywecanfixus.com. Onlywecanfixus.com. Now, here on the Bev Smith Show, we're not endorsing anyone. But what we thought was interesting is that an African in America had announced his candidacy, and for all intent and purposes on an independent move to Democratic ticket, and no one got to see that. Well, why not? If you listen to him and have listened to him in the past, he's educated and qualified. And so he's here tonight so you can get a chance to hear what you won't hear, and that is him in the debate. The question that we asked that got kind of lost in the last hour was about you debating. If you are announced, what needs to happen so that you could be included in the second debate that CNN gives? What is the criteria from CNN?
In actuality, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that, Bev, because my campaign team did raise that question. And the answer that we were given from each different network, we inquired around to find out what are the qualifications to be on the debate. We were told, well, first of all, you have to be tracking at a certain percentage in the polls. The interesting thing about that is they always say the polls, but when we began to investigate the source of their polling information, that's where it became kind of dubious, where they were getting their statistics from. You can hire your own corporations to conduct your own polls. I've got a service called Trailblazer, which is used by a lot of House of Representatives and senators, that goes out and does the polling for them and then deliver those statistics to the media. But the media turns a deaf ear on that. They conduct their own polls in their own targeted areas, and based on those responses, they say that, you've got to at least be tracking 10% or 12%, or in this case, 2%. 2%. And you can get onto the debate stage. They did that with the Republicans, and you saw 15, 20 people up there. Yet in this particular go-around, Facebook, which I've been very dominant on, and CNN, which I've had an illustrious history with. If you go back and look at a lot of my activist activities over the last year, they know exactly who I am. They've actually taped speeches of mine, which they have refused to show, said that I didn't garner enough interest to qualify to be on the debate stage. That's the answer they continuously give. Now, I'm not sure when poll numbers were written down anywhere to determine who could go head-to-head with the other candidates on where they stood on the issue, so that the American people could get a clear picture of not just what you've written on a website or what you said on a piece of paper, but to listen to the actual flow of thought pattern and reasoning that comes out of your mouth, so that I can sleep well at night knowing that you won't inadvertently get us into a nuclear war.
That's what I think is so interesting. You're almost in a catch-21 situation. They say that you have to be known by the people, and the only way that you can be known by the people is if the people can learn who you are. Following this? And the only way that people can learn who you are, doo-dah, is for you to go on the media. Doo-dah. So when they rob you of the opportunity of going on the media, when they rob you of...
Let us be clear to listeners. Let's be clear about one thing, because there are going to be some folks who are going to ask you this question. Listen, folks, up until August, I was the poster child. I was the definitive voice in the face that they were happy to entertain for the Black Lives Matter movement, until I marched with 20,000 people in South Carolina who were 17% white, Hispanic, and everything else. They were like, whoa. Brother man getting too powerful. He's getting too much shine, and he's being liked by other people. All of a sudden, you didn't see me anymore, nor mentioned. They trotted out an entirely different group of individuals, all of whom I knew, and all of who I've seen. But I'm looking at them as to say, wait a minute, what happened? And that's exactly why, when I declared my candidacy for presidency, there's been this blackout. There has been a blackout.
In more ways than one, it sounds like. In more ways than one. When I say more ways than one, there's a stopping from what you allege, no, not alleged, what you're saying is that you feel that you've been blackballed, stopped along the way. That's one way. You have not been allowed to be seen. 2, your voice has not been used for panel discussions. 3, the movements that you have been involved in, other people have been utilized. It's good to get a multitude of opinions. We certainly will be doing that in the year to come, this presidential year. But you're saying that because you marched in South Carolina where 185 rabbis carried the Torah all the way to the nation's capital. I just thought that was unbelievable. The nuns that were there. I mean, were they afraid of a rainbow coalition, to borrow Jesse's phrase? Is that why they penalized you?
I was penalized for a lot of different reasons, but I think the one thing that got me penalized more than anything else, and I'm going to be honest with you, Bev, to this day, I still receive correspondence from those constituencies in South Carolina who said that we pray that you don't give up and go away because you are the uniter that we have been looking for. We understand your pain, but at least you're willing to have a conversation to allow some of us who still feel the same way that you do to help and fix, rather than say you're just only want anarchy and overthrow and more destruction, which is what is being preached by a lot of other people in the so-called movement. That on top of the fact, what you just mentioned, a lot of things that Dr. King spoke about which must come to pass in order for us to move to the next level were beginning to manifest themselves. And the corporate media was quick to say, well, lowest common denominator is him. We got to phase this guy out. Otherwise, and I'm going to say this also, otherwise, Black Lives Matter, that movement would not have been a guest at the Million Man March. It would have been a partner of the Million Man March. And therein lies the rub with your young folks. Therein lies the rub with all your rappers, athletes, and entertainers who have embraced that battle cry. But the corporate media did an effective job of gutting what was becoming a viable discussion and a plan to movement to action.
There are several, before you go, there are several other issues. One is you said you have a platform because, as someone quoted, it does appear that there is homophobia. And we're seeing it with bakeries that don't even want to bake a cake. Come on now. Don't even want to bake a cake. And you're a preacher. I do not see that in the Bible. And let me tell you something else. I don't see it because I looked at it today. Everyone's talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. When I was in Israel, there were these Ethiopian priests. And I wanted to know what the Bible said in Hebrew about Sodom and Gomorrah. And in unison almost, they said, it was the turning away from God by everyone. By everyone. And they named what the things that were turning away. Worshiping idols, illicit sex, worshiping sexual items, sacrificing human beings, drinking of the blood. I mean, so many things that King James kind of forgot to put in the King James version of the Bible. It might have been because he was a pedophile, and you know he was. But you know he was. You know he was. King James was a pedophile. The fact that he translated the Bible doesn't mean he was a fabulous guy. It meant that everything at that time in England, Jolly-O, carried his insignia. And the story goes, and Catholics will not deny this, nor will scholars of the Bible, that he cut the tongues out of the priest and outlawed the Bible to be read by anyone who wasn't a part of his court. And if you were caught with a Bible, you could die. But after all, King James killed one of his wives or two of, he had a couple. He beheaded one of them. That's the way it goes. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll finish up. There's Social Security, and there's your plan. for the gay community. Oh, by the way, did we mention Obamacare?
Get empowered. Inspiring, motivating.
Would you wait several days for your shower to get hot? Would you wait several days to feel the full effect of relief from your nasal congestion? Flonase Allergy Relief Nasal Spray could take that long. But if you're congested now and you want powerful relief now, use Afrin No Drip. Afrin starts working in seconds and keeps working for 12 hours. So why wait several days to feel the full effect? You can start to get relief in seconds with Afrin. Afrin, powerful congestion relief without the wait. Use as directed.
Today, Geico's stuff found in your car takes us under your passenger seat.
Hello, darling. Remember me? That earring you lost? I thought we were close, but then it took 15 minutes to notice I was missing in this ghastly carpeting. That's 15 minutes you could have used to switch your car insurance to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars. Money you could use for new earrings. And wouldn't that be nice? For you.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
O'Reilly. The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 48 Sacramento O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey, neighbor, it's me. That guy 2 desks away that never takes a sick day. Seriously, you can always count on me to show up, even if I feel terrible. Which reminds me, I have the flu, and if you're one of the 63% of people that didn't get their flu shot, you can get it from me. You really should get a flu shot at Rite Aid, where you'll also get a free cold and flu protection plan to protect you from people like me. Another reason Rite Aid says with us, it's personal.
Flu vaccines available while supplies last. Age restrictions apply in some states. See pharmacist for details.
Thinking about switching to LED bulbs? There's never been a better time because this Friday through Sunday, it's Ace's biggest ever buy 2, get 1 free LED sale. Buy any 2 select LED bulbs and get 1 free. Hurry in to mix and match from our best-selling, longest-lasting LED bulbs and save on your energy costs. Only at Ace.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Buy 2 select 5 LED bulbs, get 1 of equal or lesser value free. While supplies last, store stock only at participating stores October 16th through the 18th. See store for details.
Right now, the Home Depot has Pergo XP Haley-Oak laminate flooring for just $229 a square foot. Basic installation is just 89 cents a square foot. So let's lay down a floor that stands up to our lives, with double the durability of regular laminate and just as beautiful as real wood. Let's do this with Pergo XP Haley-Oak laminate for $229, now at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only. Installation offer valid on laminates over 150 a square foot with minimum purchase of 250 square feet.
We're giving Dr. Johnson an opportunity to do what he has not been given as a viable candidate for the presidency, and that is to share his views so that you can hear, because tomorrow you will be listening to the conversations and the debate between the Democratic candidates. Donald Trump has already said that it isn't going to be entertaining like the Republican was. I don't think anything could be like that again. And I'm glad. I hope they talk about some serious subjects other than Donald Trump's ego. But anyway, we're talking to, you know what, Jay, I wanted to find out what you think about Donald Trump.
I think that Mr. Trump is doing exactly what I did. Let me explain that. He's availing himself to a process that is open to each and every American who is naturally born in this country, has lived here for 14 years, and has attained the age that the Constitution says. He's availing himself to the process. That's the first thing, because I myself am doing the exact same thing. However, beyond that, I do believe that Mr. Trump is making the false assumption that those people who get caught up in his television bravado and those individuals who don't take the time to truly educate themselves on the implications of him going in as a loose cannon, as the executive chief of the U.S. government, are setting themselves up for a very dangerous day. I believe that Mr. Trump does not understand or refuses to acknowledge that in spite of the fact that you have the money, there are several tenets and qualities that you must have experienced firsthand by interacting with all facets of the American people to be able to lead the American people and address their concerns and secure them. And most importantly, to act as commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the most powerful military might on this planet right now. There are several things that he lacks. So while he is entertaining to me, I would welcome the opportunity to go toe-to-toe with Mr. Trump, not only as a presidential candidate, but just as I was as an activist, just to go head up with, listen, I too know how to have loud, boisterous conversations that equal nothing. But at the same time, I would really like to sit down with him, and him and I have a one-on-one intellectual exploration of the issues as I begin to explore his true views, so that we could see what he's not just talking about, but what are you really prepared to do? And what are you going to do when you can't control everything with your money? That is my opinion of Donald Trump.
The president said last night on 60 Minutes, CBS, that he did not believe that Donald Trump could be made president of the United States. And I thought to myself, that's the way I felt about Ronald Reagan, both when he was elected 2 times and when he left because he had dementia in office. And everyone knows it. The allegations are that while he was in the White House, the symptoms were beginning to show, and people have commented on it. But you have to say allegations because they want to paint this image of what he was. And so I'm just concerned that if you look at the record, we got an actor, we voted for him, and they say, well, he had experience because he was a
governor.
Yeah. And so that was, I don't know, that was supposed to have made him wise what to do. But when you talk to the people in California across the political boundaries, you find out what kind of a leader he was. And it wasn't him leading.
I said it at the beginning of your show, ma'am, and you used the key word. You said made. You're right. The United States has degenerated into the very thing that I rail about on onlywecanfixus.com, is that I am not a part of that machine. And when you said that, that machine is what creates presidents. They grab someone and they literally force feed them into the position. That means they're a puppet. George Bush Jr., or whatever that guy's name was, who I erased from my memory because of the horrible time he did in the White House, was a puppet. There are puppets in the White House, but if you recall, and I will invoke his name because most folks think that my name is a coincidence. No, I was born when John Kennedy was killed. That's how I got my name. I mean, literally, when he was leaving this earth, I was entering this earth. And therefore, you remember back in the day, your mother would name you after someone prestigious or someone historical. Your name had to have some type of a meaning. So I have studied that great president all my life. But presidents are made now. How? Through money, through lobbying, through controlling interests. And that is what I'm actually railing against. Now, two things really quick. Number one, I can go out here and wage the best campaign and get the popular vote and get the American people fired up. But you and I both know that there's an underlying system that if you don't get their support, you won't get the 279 electoral votes you need to win the presidency. Barack Obama did a great job with the Axelrod Foundation in knowing how to navigate those waters. And some of those same people are some of the same people that I've made relationships with that have, in so many words, said, you would be a great candidate. We've had worse. But what we can do is we can actually get you into the position, but you're going to have to walk the walk and you're going to have to talk the talk. You're absolutely correct. Presidents are made. Donald Trump has enough money to have himself made into the presidency. However, if you take a closer look at the institution of the presidency, there are also those interests that will not allow someone of that caliber to have control over those things, which is, interestingly enough, above the president's pay grade.
We're talking with Reverend Dr. Johnson, and his name is John Fitzgerald Johnson, and he wants to be president of the United States. The president has talked a great deal about gun control. His last conversation was such that he was angered, and he said something had to be done. And he stressed, like, you don't need an AK-47. He talked about that. What are you doing? A private citizen. Well, I'm a collector. Yeah, right. You're collecting a weapon so you can kill a human being, and you can do it with an AK-47. And so that is what the president said. What do you say? And then I want you to finish tagging your platform for the gay community.
Let's take those down one at a time. On the issue of gun control. It's amazing to me that this country and the media, the corporate media, every time we have a tragedy like what happened in Oregon or what happened in Charleston or in so many other places, we always get these folks who roll out the same arguments about gun control, we must control the guns. Interestingly enough, they would have you believe that the gun industry is unregulated, that gun laws don't exist. Let's be clear, folks. Do your research. There are over 20,000 gun laws on the books. The gun industry is heavily regulated in compliance. And if you take a look at the statistics, they like to lift up the mass shooters. But if you go and look at the statistics and find out that what they're trying to do is they're trying to control something that they cannot. Let's do the math really quick for you. Of the people in this country, 80 million people are projected. This is a soft estimate to own guns. If you were to attempt to take the guns away from everybody, I'm going to be generous, and I'm going to say that maybe 90% you could scare into doing it. The other half would think that they're just obeying the law and turning their guns in. You're still talking about 10% of people who would rather die than give up the right to defend themselves, their family, their homes, or their way of life from an intruder or a tyrannical government. And that is what the Constitution speaks to. Then you stop and think about the fact that at any given time, there are only 700,000 police officers on the streets in this entire country at one time. And it is not the type of weapon. It is what the weapon is used for. I believe that guns should be regulated to the point of how they're gotten. Yes, background checks need to be had. But that's not our problem. It's not the guns. It's the lack of mental health services in this country where you can have people who are not that stable who can get their hands on weapons. Take all the guns away, they'll use knives. We had a guy in China that killed 22 people with a knife. Okay? So when I hear about gun control and being ex-military myself and being properly trained in the use, the disposition, and the custodian of high-level firepower and owning weapons myself, both in my home for hunting, for target practice, and even teaching my family how to be effective custodians of weapons. It is one of the greatest rights you have in this country. I will not see that infringed upon. However, we do need to tighten up the gun show loop, because if you don't have to go through a background check there, then why do we have laws in place for the gun stores? That has to be regulated. But at the same time, coming up with these catchphrase terms like semi-assault weapon, there's no such thing as an assault weapon if you look at the term. If you say semi-automatic weapon, any weapon that continues to fire every time I pull the trigger, including pistols, is a semi-automatic weapon. If you're talking about machine guns, well, they've been outlawed since 1934. And the only time that a crime has been used for one is one time, and that was by a police officer. So you cannot fall for the rhetoric. What they'll do is every time that there is an incident like what happened in Oregon, they try to rush legislation through while everybody's caught up in the fervor, when in actuality, this is an attack on your fundamental constitutional rights. Yes, we need laws to govern background checks. Yes, we need more money.
We have to take another break, surprisingly enough. We have to take another break. We'll be back.
Get empowered. Inspiring, motivating, empowering.
How strong is Allegra D?
It's my congestion's out of my way strong. Even in the park, playing with my dogs. Go fetch, Bosley.
Allegra D, a fast, non-drowsy antihistamine plus a powerful decongestant that starts relieving your toughest allergy symptoms in under 1 hour.
Allegra D is breathing free for 24 hours strong, even in the convertible.
Allegra D, strong relief for your allergy symptoms, guaranteed or your money back. Visit Allegra.com. Use only as directed.
The best way to live with diabetes is to not live with it alone. That's why Walgreens pharmacists are here for you 24/7 with expert advice and savings on medications and supplies. Just bring in your prescriptions. We can even show you how to get rewarded for healthy behaviors, like logging your glucose. Because Walgreens knows that taking control of diabetes takes an extra hand. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
Get a free private consultation with an expert Walgreens pharmacist.
Jared the Galleria of Jewelry presents Levion Chocolate Diamonds and Chocolate Cultured South Sea Pearls. Levion, unique, one-of-a-kind jewelry. From ancient royalty to today's red carpet, Levion is the only company on earth to make jewelry with chocolate diamonds, including exclusive designs you'll only find at Jared. And that's why he went to Jared. Find a Jared store or shop anytime at jared.com.
Stop by any of the 48 Sacramento O'Reilly Auto Parts stores, where you'll find everyday low prices on the parts you need to keep your vehicle at its best. Our guaranteed low prices ensure you're always getting our best deal. In fact, we'll match any auto parts store's price on any like item. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hey, are those Cape Cod chips you're eating?
Yeah.
You know where they make those things?
Cape Cod, I assume.
You're darn right they make them in Cape Cod, right on Breeds Hill Road in Hyannis, down the street from the mall. Do you know what else they make in Cape Cod? Belts. Belts with little whales on them.
That's cool.
No, it's not cool. The whale belts are an embarrassment. The chips are delicious. They're a local treasure. We're deeply proud of them. Now, can I have a chip, please?
Sure.
Cape Cod chips. Back home, we're a pretty big deal.
AT&T knows that staying on top of your modern life is about staying connected. Whether you're at home, at work, or at play, you always need the ability to go full speed ahead. And that means you need a data plan that has your back. One that works day and night and updates constantly. Right now with AT&T, you can get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at device speed for $40 a month on GoPhone. After a $5 account credit each month when you sign up for auto refill and make your first payment of $45. All on the network with the nation's strongest 4G LTE signal. No credit check, no annual contract, no joke. When you're unlimited, there's nothing stopping you. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Unused 1.5 gigabytes data carries over for one 30-day period if your plan renews on time. Expires after first 30-day period or with plan change. Data usage exceeding the high-speed allowance will result in reduced data speeds of up to 128 kilobytes per second for the rest of your 30-day term. Compatible device required. Get $5 credit after first order refill payment. Credit applied within 30 days. Account must be active. Usage and other restrictions apply. Signal strength claim based only on average 4G LTE signal strength for national carriers. See store for details.
Motivating, empowering. This is the Bev Smith Show. This is the Bev Smith Show on the Empowerment Radio Network.
Tomorrow Bev Smith Show, you'll be able to watch the debate and listen to the show. And in the second hour of the Bev Smith Show tomorrow, you're going to meet a young man. His name is D. Watkins, and he is, in my opinion, the brand new spanking voice on the horizon. He's written a book called The Beast Side, Living and Dying While Black in America. Brand new voice tomorrow on the Bev Smith Show. But first, an overall look at healthcare in America by a doctor who will be watching what the great debaters tomorrow have to say. Plan to join us. We're here for you. You come be here for us tomorrow on the Bev Smith Show.
It's the Queen of Information. This is the Bev Smith Show.
We're finishing up our conversation with John Fitzgerald Johnson, minister, political. And you know, it's interesting that you did not introduce in your introduction yourself as a political advocate, because you have been on the forefront to get bills passed, and you've been involved in letting your voice be heard. And I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say, have you talked to Donald Trump? Have you had your people get in touch with his people?
I have reached out to Mr. Trump several times. I've reached out to Dr. Carson several times. As a matter of fact, I even spoke with Hillary Clinton briefly when I was in South Carolina, but I don't think she recognized the magnitude of who she was talking to or what I was requesting. But ever since this candidacy has been declared, they will not respond to my requests. Rupert Murdoch said the other day that we're the real black candidates. I immediately had my team reach out to him. We got no response.
Interesting. Well, when he said real black candidates, did he mean candidates like Ben Carson? Because the Fox network has been very kind to Ben Carson, had given him, in my estimation, more time to talk than any of the other candidates. Well, maybe that's not true, because Donald Trump gets all the time he can get. But
as long as there is an individual who speaks like Ben Carson, who's wearing the skin that I'm in, Fox News will put his face up every chance they get.
Interesting. So maybe you weren't the right candidate. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you're
in actuality, I think that the backlash that came at Mr. Murdoch after he made that statement, because he had to come back and apologize, and of course, you know, he probably didn't see that coming. But when an 84-year-old white man who has lived in the upper echelons of life says that he doesn't consider Barack Obama to be a real black president because he won't address any black issues at all, as we talked about earlier, but then turns around and tries to give that accolade to someone of the caliber of Dr. Ben Carson, who I don't take anything away. He's a great surgeon, and he has some great ideas in that respect, even though he's a little disconnected from the true black experience in America by virtue of the career he's led. I think that Mr. Murdoch himself, after seeing the backlash, began to realize, well, wait a minute. If Ben Carson is not what I should be looking for, then why doesn't someone show me what I should be looking for? Henceforth, the media started touting, well, Ben Carson's the only African-American running. And that's when the phones blew up off the hook again. So apparently, either he's realized that, well, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I stepped into a hornet's nest here, or maybe I need to take a solid look at this John Fitzgerald guy before I say anything openly, because I may be inviting that which America truly does not want.
And that is another black president.
Not another black president. I'm glad you filled in the gap for me. Remember when Barack Obama was elected the first time, they said the first black president, and everybody was running around saying, oh, we got the first black president. Notice they didn't say the only. They said first. So since there's a first, they anticipate there'll be a second. However, when you look at Barack Obama's track record from all aspects, whether it's the conservative America or whether you look at African Americans in general. There are generally quite a few who were expecting something a little stronger, something not so middle of the road, something a little more confrontational, controversial, and something that would at least deal with a few of the issues and not have something that actually occurred on his watch. The rise of Black Lives Matter because of the rise of the racial inequality and racial injustice at the hands of law enforcement and the judicial system and the schools, the prison system that has manifested itself in the last 2 or 3 years in this country. So I could fill in that blank many ways. What we need is, and what we should be looking for, is someone who's at least willing to weather the storm by having those conversations. What are they going to do? Impeach me? Or better yet, do the same thing to me that they did to the last person that wore my name because they were on the right track?
Well, that's to be decided. You stepped into the hornet's nest. You know you might get stung. You know that. Your phones might get tapped. Your mail might be watched. Listen, when one is declared a president and begins to run a campaign, several things are needed. One is money. How do you do that? And the second is security. Do you now have security since you've announced that you are running for the presidency?
You know, it's funny you asked me that, Bev, because the first thing is, I was listening to you earlier, you were talking about them tapping your phones and disconnecting your phones. You have to understand something about John Fitzgerald. I come from a military background that is steeped in top secret, SATCOM, encrypted communications, technology, and all of that good stuff. My calls are constantly monitored now. My calls are strategically interrupted. I have my folks even carrying 2 and 3 phones now so that we can jump around because we know the government is listening. But because of the rapport, now listen very carefully to this, everyone who's listening to me, because of the rapport that I built on the streets in those cities where we raised awareness in response to police brutality. If you remember in Baltimore, our security came from, of all people, the Bloods.
Yeah, the Crips and the Bloods, yeah.
We unite. That was our police force, and they weren't going to let anyone hurt us. The presidential candidate with street credibility. The streets, believe it or not, which is where you really need to go if you want to reach those folks who are disenfranchised and turn them into voters, protect me. However, when I'm in D.C. or when I'm in Chicago, and I just spoke at Columbia College University in Chicago to the School of Journalism, they provided security. I myself am a soldier. I welcome security, but that is not something that I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of meeting the people. I'm not afraid of stepping into behind the podium. I'm not afraid because of the simple fact that, yes, I understand the necessity for security. I'm no idiot. I'm not going to put myself in a position to be taken out. So, yes, I do have security, but what's interestingly enough is depending on the environment that I walk in, like I talked to you about in Ferguson, where they embraced me, they welcomed me, they fed me, they housed me, because I came as one of them. I did not come to be condescending to them or to act like I was doing them a favor by showing up. I'm one of you, and I'm one of you who sees things through your eyes. So where is this needed protection coming from? Well, guess what? It's coming from the very system that I'm trying to avail myself to. So as far as phones being tapped, mail being screened, depending on the environment that I go in, there have been times where I've told people, no, I don't want any security.
But I didn't mean that kind of security. And I will tell you, when I was threatened because I refused to uninvite the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the nation came and protected me. And I've had security from the nation everywhere I go, just about. I'll have a brother come up and say to me, Miss Bev, you don't have to worry. Cincinnati, you don't have to worry. The mosque there, you don't have to worry. Pittsburgh, you don't have to worry. But aren't you entitled? But aren't you entitled as a candidate? Because every announced candidate for the presidency now has security. So I'm asking, isn't that a part of the announcement procedure? And when you're bona fide, and aren't you a bona fide candidate? Did you file all the papers and all that other stuff?
Yes, you can go to the FEC and do a scan for candidates, and yes, you can pull up my committee, and you can pull up my committee number, and the IRS has already done their part, and we're filing financial reports. We are 100, and matter of fact, we're more legitimate than some of these candidates that you're seeing them move into the picture. They're still dotting I's and crossing T's. I saw an article today on Joe Biden, who still has not made a decision on whether or not he's going to run, and the article said he's waited so late in the campaign that not so much whether or not the people will want to hear what he has to say, so what, they're saving a podium for him at the debate with plastic wrapped over it. He still has to file papers. Those deadlines are coming and going. He still has to raise X amount of dollars before he can get on any primary or into any of these caucuses. So he's behind the power cord. And there are other candidates that are just catching up.
We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. You think about this, so when we come back, tell me what you want the people, and in particular African-American people, to know. First, to the universal Americans, and then...
When the leading antihistamine and Nasacort go nose-to-nose, Nasacort wins, stopping more of the chemical responses that can cause your nasal allergy symptoms. And when you stop more causes, you get 24-hour relief from sneezing, an itchy runny nose, even congestion. It's prescription strength medicine available over the counter. Nasacort Allergy 24-hour. Stops more of what makes you miserable. Use as directed.
Let's give it up for turning off cell phones and turning on turn signals. For old Miss Jenkins taking her sweet time crossing the street, and teen drivers making it home in one piece. Let's give it up for safer streets and Allstate safe driving bonus checks in our mailboxes. Every 6 months, you're accident-free. Allstate sends a check.
Not available in every state. Feature is optional, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and its affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Call a local Allstate agent today or visit allstate.com/giveitupforgood.
Thinking about switching to LED bulbs? There's never been a better time, because this Friday through Sunday, it's Ace's biggest ever buy two, get one free LED sale. Buy any two select LED bulbs and get one free. Hurry in to mix and match from our best-selling, longest-lasting LED bulbs and save on your energy costs. Only at Ace.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Buy two select Fight LED bulbs, get one of equal or lesser value free. While supplies last, store stock only at participating stores October 16th through the 18th. See store for details.
Right now, the Home Depot has Pergo XP Haley-Oak laminate flooring for just $229 a square foot. Basic installation is just 89 cents a square foot. So let's lay down a floor that stands up to our lives, with double the durability of regular laminate and just as beautiful as real wood. Let's do this with Pergo XP Haley-Oak laminate for $229, now at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only. Installation offer valid on laminates over 150 square foot with minimum purchase of 250 square feet.
The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 48 Sacramento O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Stay informed and stay in the know. Learn and interact with compelling conversation. Grow your mind and transform your thinking. This is the Bev Smith Show on the Empowerment Radio Network.
Talking to a man who wants to be president of the United States. He says we can fix it. We're the ones that can fix it. And John Fitzgerald Johnson wants you to understand how he feels. We decided to let you hear what he has to say because not too many people have had a chance to hear him and talk about his candidacy. One other point, let's see, we've got enough time I can squeeze this in before I let you have your final statements. The president has to be a diplomat. And one of the things that I find that I have enjoyed about this president is that he has been able to undo in a small way some of the damage in the diplomatic arena that was done by 8 years of Dick Cheney being president. I mean, of George Bush being the puppet. I mean, of, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Wow.
You know what I mean. Come on. Let's tell it. The puppet by the string. So what I like is that this president has been able to go to countries that the white boys decided they just weren't going to talk to. We're just not going to talk to them. We're just not going to talk to them. I mean, even George Bush the first talked to people. Even Richard Nixon talked to countries. But these folks, they did a great deal of damage in the geopolitical diplomatic relationships. What do you think about it?
On the topic of foreign policy, Bev, there's an excellent book I encourage folks to pick up. It's called Superpower. It's by Ian Bremmer. It's actually required reading for anyone who wants to seek the presidency because he actually breaks down something that you just talked about. And in reading that book, I actually took what he said and I went and I took a look. And you're right, President Obama did go out and he was a uniter. You know, he was an ambassador. He restored. He gave an easy feeling. He did all of those things. That work must continue. You know, we're talking about Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Syria, and the Ukraine. Then we've got different things going on, but there's an overarching decision that America has to make. And that's why I bring this up, is because we have to decide what role we're going to play on the global stage. And we only have three choices. If you understand foreign policy, or even if you're just a student of it, enough to understand the basics. Either we are going to say we're an independent America, and that it's time for America to declare independence from the responsibility to solve other people's problems. However, if we do that, and all of these have pros and cons, if we do that, we just lead by example. Pretty much pull out of everywhere and, hey, watch how we do it. Well, we know the world doesn't work that way, but that is one policy this country is going to have to adopt and take a walk in, or we're going to have to become Moneyball America. And that's acknowledging that Washington can't meet every international challenge. With a clear-eyed assessment of U.S. strengths and limitations, we must look beyond empty arguments over exceptionalism and American values. We cannot think that because it doesn't look like us, it's wrong. We have to stop that. If that's the way we're going to be, then guess what? It's going to be a rough road for America. And then, of course, there's the other model, which is what we call indispensable America, which argues that only America can defend the values on which global stability increasingly depends. Once again, we become the world cop. America has to make a decision on the foreign policy table that either we're going to be Big Brother and mediate the fight and make sure everybody's okay, or we're going to be the cop who kicks down the doors and says, listen, you guys can't handle it, we'll handle it for you, and we've seen what that's gotten us. Or we've got to go in and say, hey, you know what? We're just going to take care of ourselves. We're going to be a shining example, and you just follow our lead. Either way, we've got to make up our minds. And then we have to continue to build on what President Obama has done. He has been a friend, more of a friend, kinder, gentler nation to other countries than the administration before. You know, this entire shift from a defensive posture to what they call a proactive attacking posture of just going into other countries, yes, that's what we call imperialism. And America tried that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and it landed us in 2 world wars. So I would say that as president, I would continue his policies of being a kinder, gentler, friendlier, more negotiable. The Iran deal, not the Iran Contra deal, but the Iran contract would still be something that we could still talk about. But at the end of the day, we're not going to alienate everyone who disagrees with us. If you disagree, fine. We can agree to disagree. But we're not going to blackball you, blacklist you, or pull support, or better yet, come up with some fictitious reason to overthrow your regime. That is my stance on foreign policy. We have to decide who we're going to be in the world. We can't be one thing to one people and something else to another. It doesn't work that way.
that image that you just created of our geopolitical positions certainly plays out in the polarization that is in this country. It isn't just externally that we have this egotistical, superior attitude, but with comments being made by Donald Trump and younger people. I heard a woman the other day say, a young white woman, that she really believed in Obama and she worked for the first campaign and the second, and now she's going to Donald Trump. And I thought, whoa, you talk about a leap. Put that woman in Olympics. She can really leap. She can leap. That was a far leap, don't you think? And I said, how did that happen? How does that happen? Well, I think part of the problem is that there is no backlash against information being put out by the Republican side. Just take, for example, what happened last week. McCarthy, who was being investigated for what some folks investigated for what some people call the McCarthyism, the new McCarthyism, and who was also being considered as the new Speaker for the House of Representatives, told Sean Hannity that the campaign against Hillary Clinton with the emails was deliberate. It was devised by the Republicans, so it is said, to, I don't want to get it right because I know you probably heard it, to discredit her and to make her lose some of her support. I heard it. I have a copy of it here somewhere. I'm looking for it now. And we saw it on the internet. And then we heard it for a little bit on the news, not that much. Now, I want to know why we are not seeing an investigation into the McCarthyism, into the fact that the Republicans were trying to discredit Hillary Clinton, that they have made a big deal of this email thing when we know that George Bush didn't show his. And some he called a priority. And when she was utilizing the email, as she said in the earlier days, it was not considered a breach of security. So I want to know why the media isn't and hasn't, or maybe they're doing it and I don't know about it, investigated the fact that she was deliberately campaigned against in this way. And isn't there something about that that strikes of Watergate? And what about the law? Help me understand that, Reverend, please.
Sure. First of all, a lot of folks have to wrap their minds around the fact that this is truly what we call a Gordian knot. You got multiple things tied together here. First of all, remember, Hillary Clinton, after she competed against Barack Obama in her last campaign, a lot of folks would have been happy if she had just faded into the sunset along with Bill and just went on talk shows and just, been a piece of history. But they knew she was coming back. And they knew that they had to do something to derail her campaign. Therefore, when Trey Gowdy was put in charge of that commission, which was given the purpose of finding out why on September 11, 2012, so-called Islamic militants attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, killing U.S. Ambassador Jay Christopher. That was a noble reason, and everyone got on board. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, no. They know how these elections work. They know the timetable involved. And with the changing of society, there's some other things involved. Remember, in the last 8 years, even the women's movement itself has enjoyed unprecedented success in some areas. There's still a problem with women's inequality in this country, which isn't part of my platform, but there's been some great strides. Even in the LGBT community, there have been some great strides, but there's still a long way to go. But for Hillary Clinton to be coming back in 2016 to run for president, they thought, well, we know she's going to carry the women's vote. We've got to do something to derail this. Henceforth, the focus turned to the Clinton emails, and that became the new focus of the Benghazi inquiry. No longer were they talking about what happened over in Libya. Now we're focusing on the fact that, well, it happened on your watch. No, we don't even want to talk about that. We want to talk about why you had a server with emails on it and whether you were talking about classified stuff on it. Because if you did, you're in violation of a lot of law.
We are out of time. We appreciate so much you spending this time with us. And we thank God we had an opportunity to introduce you to the public. We will follow you. It will be interesting to see how you're treated. And so we will follow you along the trail as we follow other politicians who want to be president. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for giving us the time. God bless.
Thank you, Bev. OnlyWeCanFixUs.com. Go there, read my platform, donate, get me on the radio.